Welcome to the Cauldron of Curiosities, Cameron Raphael.
Hello, welcome. Lovely to be here in my own lounge.
It's great, isn't it, when we're online? So, first of all, I would like to know is Cameron Raphael a curious person?
Oh, definitely. I'd say curious intellectually, just curious to know, and curious to be around. I think I raise a few more eyebrows than I would like to think, really.
And I know that you're a man of many talents, and if you were colouring your different hats, would you like to tell our listeners at the beginning maybe half a dozen of your hats?
Oh, okay. Well, let's start with the most interesting one. For 10 years, I performed as a drag queen, so that's always fun.
Yeah.
I've studied everything from Hermeticism to Gnostic movement. I'm a ceremonial magician. I've read tarot, oracle, and other sorts of divination methods since I was 10. Avid practitioner of the old lovely tuning forks and sound. I'm a published author. I've published a book of poetry. Currently working on a novel. I've been on TV. What else? I think that very much comes it. I love amateur dramatics as well. So,
So tell me. So you mentioned that you've been reading cards. So what was it that made you curious about reading tarot cards?
So it's the shortened-ish, sort of more concise version is that my granddad had passed away, and we were in a bookshop in Liskeard, which I don't know if it's in the same location now, but it was a little bookshop, and it had the Thoth deck and an accompanying book on a pedestal in the middle of the room, and it was very close to Christmas. And I said to my nan, I really, really want that. I don't know why I wanted it. I suppose curiosity got the better of me. What's that? They look like nice, pretty pictures. And my nan, not knowing really much about it, went, yeah, all right, then we'll get you those for Christmas.
Yeah.
And then thus begun the journey. And I was 8.5. So I opened them up on Christmas Day, and of course my mum was mortified, and my stepdad was like, he's not playing with those, he can have them at your house, Cynthia. I'm not having him do that at home. So every day after school I had to take a card and I had to learn it and look at the symbolism. And those of you who are aware of the Thoth deck, it's a very deep deck. It's not something most people would cut their teeth on. It's very heavy in symbolism. It's got a lot of relations to the Kabbalah and other things, and that's what I learned to read on.
Yeah. You don't like to make things easy for yourself, then?
No, but I didn't know any different at the time.
Yeah. No.
Divinely guided, we'll say, divinely guided. So after that, I by the age of 10, I was doing sort of loads of different spreads for friends and my nan and all sorts of people that would come to my nan's house, because I still wasn't allowed them in my own bedroom. And I did sneak them home once, and I left them on my desk in my room, and my dad took them and put them back at my nan's house. So and it struck a deeper fascination. I mean, I'd already kind of experienced the spirit realm as well. By the age of sort of 9, 10, my granddad died, and I saw him at the end of my bed the same night he died. So once I realised what this was about a little bit more, and I read the Kabbalion to Hermetics at the age of 12. So it kind of fostered an even bigger curiosity and an even bigger fascination with the wider term of the occult and the esoteric. So that started it, and then I think I was about 15 before I started. People said, "Oh, you're good at this. We'll pay you for a reading." I'm like, "Yeah, all right then."
Yeah. No, it helps, doesn't it? Because if you're getting paid for your passion,
yeah,
then there's always a bonus of that.
Absolutely. And then sort of continued multiple decks by this point. It's actually quite funny. I remember being given a deck of Angel Oracle cards by Doreen Virtue, and they sat sealed for a good 10 years. And I touch on this in the book I'm writing at the moment. And if someone had mentioned to me, "Oh, angels," I'm like, "Yeah, what a load of old shit," and just didn't believe in it, wouldn't have entertained it. And I look at how I read now, and angel cards are a part of that. The Ascended Masters are. One of my favourite tuning forks is Metatron. And if you'd said to me 5 years ago, "Oh yeah, you'll be writing a book of angelic poetry," I'm like, no.
Yeah. No, I know what you mean, because it can have connotations, can't it? The angelic aspect, and it's quite something to get your head around on whether you want to work with that energy.
Well, it's more because I didn't, in my mind, this is stupid me really, I always thought, oh, well, if it's angels, then it's Christian, it's God with a big G. I want nothing to do with that. And it's not until you do your research a bit further and you go, well, actually, it couldn't be further from the truth. Or naturally, there's an element of source or the creator, but it's not the way people have taught us for years, and using the Bible as a way for shame and control. These beings transcend all that.
So could you explain to people listening what your connection with the angels, if it's not a Christian connection, then what is it?
So I firmly believe that we all have these energy beings, these light beings around us that are there to help guide and influence us if we are so open to them. And I think angels is just the commonly accepted title for that. And then obviously you have your archangels, you have your cherubim, your seraphim, and all the others as well. Different orders of, but I believe that if we can get past the label, which I think as humans we're not very good at, whether it has a name, for me it's just Metatron. It doesn't matter that he's termed as an archangel, Sandalphon or Uriel, Shamuel, all of them, they are just ascended, higher consciousness, higher vibrational beings that want to see us be our best and achieve things. I mean, there's a really well-known author, Kyle Gray, I don't know if you're aware of him, and he does oracle cards and books and things. And it was reading one of his books that really kind of like put it into perspective, because I was like, well, I don't have a faith like other people would say they have a faith, but I wanted to understand why I was getting these feelings of like wings around me and all this really like high vibrational energy before I was like, okay, before I invite these things in, because it could be just as bad as it could be good. I want to understand a bit more, and then started reading with the angel cards that I was bought all that time ago, and found a deep respect and reverence for something I would never have entertained. And I think once you can let go of your own prejudices, which is what it was really, it was a religious negative connotation in my mind, because in my mind, how could I accept and believe in something that comes from that faith which has caused so much hurt and pain to a lot of people? So they can't, those two weren't mutually exclusive. They were like warring factions. So I had to kind of rationalize that, and once I did that I was like, okay, yeah, I can work with this. And then when I found the forks, the first fork I ever picked up outside of what we had on that course was Metatron. I was like, okay, I hear you. I can work with this.
Yeah. Okay. So you know the thing I shared in the group the other day, the lady in Australia, she actually called forward Metatron within that meditation, and that was quite interesting. I would be interested to know what language it was that she was speaking as well through the meditation. It was a very lyrical tongue that she used.
I haven't had time to listen yet. I was going to do that this afternoon, but time escaped. So most people, when they connect with angels, use Enochian, which is supposedly the language of the angels. It's also usually written in a Theban script, which is quite an interesting thing in itself. lots of angelic sigils, sort of, especially sort of in the Key of Solomon, will use a Theban script.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, when you listen to it, come back to me and tell me if that's what it is. It sounded. I liked the sound of that language more than I liked her speaking in English.
It's often the way, isn't it?
Yeah, there was nothing wrong with the way she was talking, but I really liked the lilt and the words that she was saying, and I could feel myself trying to make sense of it and going, "Do I know what she's saying?" Yeah. So
interesting. I'll definitely have a listen.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting thing, isn't it? Because being from your background, you will have come across prejudice in so many different ways. So it must be quite difficult for you to then go, I'm being prejudiced.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like, you have to catch yourself and go, hang on a minute, if I perpetuate this, I'm as bad as the people that started it. When really all that matters is those beings, those creatures, whatever we want to call them, they transcend that because they're not on the mortal coil. They're not in our plane of existence. They're not even in our dimension. So if we can let go of what we perceive to be a bad thing and understand it from a case of, loads of religions all over the world have taken something good and tried to warp it. It's a strange one because you don't consciously think you're doing it, and then it kind of went. And I realised after talking with my husband, I said, "Oh, Christianity this and Christianity that—they're all as bad as each other." And he went, "Basically, what you've just said, you've just been as prejudiced as they were." And I think I don't have to agree with something to understand it. So I did do my research. I did read various versions of the Bible and Bibles to see which one, if any, I could resonate with. And I believe my firmest point on any religion is that they've all got a little bit right.
Yeah.
I don't consider any one religion to be the one religion, and I think polytheism is probably the best way to be, because then you get to see it from.
Yeah, I'd recommend you look up the term omniist.
I've heard it before. Yeah, absolutely. Omniist means, I think, omniist, polytheist. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The label again. I think as long as you follow your own moral compass, 9 times out of 10, it does align with all the teachings of every faith. I mean, you think back what sort of the morals we were taught at school and all those sorts of things. They're predominantly Christian values, but they're also Muslim values, also Sikh values, also Buddhist values, also Hindu values. So they've all got those bits in common, and they've all got a lot right. So I think I don't care for I only like labels in my clothes, that sort of thing. It's just I don't really care for the rest of this giving everything a name, because I don't think you can truly name the experience of what it is to have a faith or have a spiritual experience.
Yeah, and I suppose the problem, though, is with human beings, it's part of what makes us comfortable labeling, and it allows us to have an expectation, because the label will mean X, and this is what you're going to get in the tin. And we do quite a lot without always realizing it to make ourselves feel safe. And when we start looking at psychological safety, it's paramount to how it links into those behaviours we see when we're being prejudiced, when we're creating labels, when we're doing these things. And why are they doing that? And then you can start picking it apart, which is why we often get people not being open-minded. It's like you said about your stepfather not allowing the tarot cards to be in the house. What did he think was going to happen? That a devil was going to crawl out one of the cards?
Sure. Maybe. I'm not entirely sure. I never really pushed it because, I think sometimes you've got to pick your battles, and falling out with your stepdad when all he just wants is a happy home. And I would have very much kicked off repeatedly, and just made things difficult. And there's a great example of that, which I always chuckle about now. So I mentioned before I used to perform in drag. And I used to get up 2 hours early to paint my face in full drag makeup, just to walk past my mum as she was having her morning cup of tea and breakfast, turn back, look at her, grin, walk out the door, just because I knew it used to annoy her. Then I'd get around the corner and wipe it all off.
Oh.
So that's the sort of level I was at, and at one point, if I knew it would push buttons, I'd push buttons.
And what about now? Because you're not that much older, Cameron.
So yeah, that's I'm glad I'm not like that anymore.
So
No, I'm not. I'm 31 though.
So
no.
I've got another question for you. I'm curious, how many tarot decks have you got?
Oh, well, too many is the answer. But I think at last count it was 130. Then there's Oracle decks as well, which is probably about the same, maybe 5 or 10 more.
Where do you keep them?
Some of them are in storage in boxes in the loft now. But my working few sets are always within arm's reach. I mean, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 in the lounge right now. Of different types of.
When you say you've got your working decks, so how would you explain to anyone listening what your working deck is? What do you have a system?
It's a system of my own devising, but the simplest answer is I have a few cycles where I will say I really favour, say, my Deviant Moon Tarot and my Guardians of the Night Tarot, so they will come out with me wherever I go. And then I'll have, like, if I go to read at a fair or know I'm doing readings for somebody, I generally give them 3 options to choose from of each type. So there'll be 3 tarot and 3 oracle on the table, and that becomes my working kit until I decide to change it. I mean, there are a couple decks that I've got which will never come out of and see the light of day again because they're vintage and they're quite precious. There's an original, very, very old Thoth deck that I picked up on eBay a long time ago, and that's living in a box in acid-free paper, and because one day it will be worth something. And there's a few that I won't use now because I've outgrown them, but I've kept them. I mean, with me and as you met Nikki the other day, shout out to Nikki, we did a swap for a deck that she wanted, and she had one that I was going to buy. So we swapped. So she had the Starman Tarot off me, and she swapped with me the Kuan Yin Oracle.
Oh, okay.
So, which is one I've been thinking about for a little while. It's, I saw it and I thought, oh, I quite like that.
And you gave up the Starman, David Bowie Starman.
I did, because it wasn't getting used enough, and it's such a beautiful, beautiful deck. It needs to be out there being appreciated, and because it wasn't in the current cycle of being used, I just thought, well, someone who was after it anyway, who's really wanting it, let's do a an exchange and get someone so he can get to be used. I think there are some that will never be used again because, well, I've either outgrown them or they're just fragile. And I think it's important to savour these things because God knows, probably in about 50 years there won't be such things. It will all be digital.
Only if we let it. Only if we let it happen.
I believe it will be digital anyway.
I think we can stop that. I think we can create our own reality on that side of things. Yeah. It's like that whole still buying things with cash, isn't it? So
absolutely, I'm a big advocate of that. I think the fact is we can't let it go anywhere, but I do think that people will try.
I think they will, but I'm sensing a bit of a rebellion coming.
Absolutely, I hope so.
Well, there's already been some.
I'll wave the flag for tarot decks.
Well, I don't think you can get the same out of. It isn't the same. I've done them online, where it lets you. It's not the same. But I'm a book reader. I do read Kindles, but you can't beat a book, because it's like I've had this book arrive. I've read this book before. I've listened to it online, and I got this version of it. Now, I know I picked the right version because look what's in the middle. Is that beautiful? And I'm looking at the image of the bee, and it's just, I think bees are divine. And
fantastic book.
I love the book, and we're doing it in the book club. I'm doing a book club because I think Terry Pratchett was like a super witch of some sort. He just knows too much. There's far too much stuff, and he makes me think. He makes me more curious. I read one of his books and go, So one of my curious thoughts is about Jenny Greenteeth, but we could end up going down a rabbit hole about Jenny Greenteeth. But I will be looking into Jenny Greenteeth and with the book club. And what the next question I actually had was Oracle decks. What makes you curious about selecting an Oracle deck? What is it that makes you go, ooh, I'm having that?
So I generally work off. I'm not going to buy it on impulse anymore. I used to. Even if I saw it and I just like the title, I buy it. But now I allow a bit more discernment, and I say to myself and to my spirit team, look, if this is something that really is going to align with me, show it to me a distinct number of times. So that's what I did with the Mary Magdalene Oracle. Obviously, I've been working with Mary Magdalene and her tuning fork, and was quite aware of her story. And I said, right, show me that 12 times. And I was in completely random places, and it would be in a bookshop window, or it would be someone would be sat there using it. And I thought, right, okay, so now I have to have it. And it was the same with the Kuan Yin. Like, show this to me, like, just make it stand out. And I thought, well, if they want me to read with that, obviously it's tapping into some divine feminine energies. I will gladly work with it. But sometimes it's just the artwork is really draws you in. So one of my favorite oracles, which I know you've seen, is Patrick Gamble's Spirit Oracle. Because it's all paintings that at some point he's painted himself. So it's not just some computer drawn thing. It's someone's spent, well, he probably most of them he spends 50 hours or more on, I'm sure, hand painting these beautiful images. And they've all got such an energy about them. They're all very distinct. They've got their own little souls. And I was very fortunate to be given a copy of that deck, because it was more than I could afford at the time. And it's, since I bought it, it's not been in my working set or kit for a long since I've had it. It's always been in there. I did start off being quite selfish. I thought, no, this is going to be a deck just for me. And then before I knew it, it spiraled, and it's in my kit box everywhere I go. And what else is in there at the moment? The Ascended Masters Oracle, the Angel Oracle, the Kuan Yin, the Oracle of the Native Spirit Oracle, which is a series of sacred mandalas. They're really nice. Because I think it's important to have a variety. And especially when you read for people like I do, and I can put them out on the table in front of them and go, right, go where you're drawn. It just brings someone else into the reading of it, because I could sit there and go, well, I'll pick everything for you, and I'll shuffle all the cards. I'm like, no, well, they can do it. It just makes it a bit more immersive, and the showman that I am gets them part of their own story, and especially if there's a lot of healing to happen within that reading, or they've got some really like hard topics to face, because they're invested in it, because they've put their own little stamp on it. And you watch people say, they watch me shuffle, and then I go, right, now you have a go, you shuffle, and they get all a bit flustered. I can't shuffle like you, and it doesn't matter, because you're breaking that ice, and you're breaking down the barrier to effective communication. And I had a reading with a lady the Saturday before we started Atlantis Rising, and she said, so what's the difference between tarot and oracle? I said, simply put, tarot is always the same in terms of the 78 cards. They might have a variation where they call it coins or discs or whatever, but it will always have the same base imagery. They might call it something different, or it might have vibrant colors, but that's always the same. Oracle can be absolutely anything, and it doesn't have any sort of rules to it, because it's within the eyes of the author and creator. So mostly my readings are combined, so I do a tarot and an oracle reading together to get the full picture and story. Whereas some people go, well, you have one or the other. But I think if people are paying for your time, you should give them value for money.
Yeah, true. I've got a number of Jungian based decks, and they are quite interesting. But it's interesting about what lures you in, and the some of the symbols within those. And one of them is very strict. It's got a lot of imagery that ties in really well with my nursing and the biology and things. It's those bits, and when you're looking at it and going, so how can that reflect in the spirit world, and it's remembering to look at it from a different points of view, and how that connects, like with muscle and what it's made up of, because we're made up of all the elements, and people forget that when we're disconnected by watching too much TV. The disconnection, and then if we can reconnect,
absolutely. I think it's really I think we forget that we're human, don't we?
Yeah. So,
yeah, I think I'm seeing a huge sort of, as I do these events and stuff, and I'm sure as you go around, you see it as well, that people are starting to remember that we are not just these flesh suits. We are a cosmic being having a human experience.
Yeah. Have we got a time lag?
I didn't hear what you said there. You crackled.
I think we have a time lag. Ooh, what happened? Hello? What's happened there?
We're on lag.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I'll do is I'm going to turn my camera off.
We had a lag.
There we go. That's better, isn't it?
We had a huge lag.
Yeah. Oh. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah. That's working better, isn't it? If we keep it on just talking. Yeah. Go for it.
So you asked the question, and then it crackled and stopped and lagged, so I didn't catch that, I'm afraid.
So, thinking about the elemental parts of ourselves, do you have a deck, a tarot deck, or an oracle deck that allows you to demonstrate that to the person you're reading for?
I have a plant oracle which shows like herbs, spices, and fruits and veg and other plants, and it shows like words around that, and then it has how they relate to each element. Trying to think, there's so many. There's that one, and I've got sort of. There is an elemental oracle, but it's still within its box because I bought it a long time ago, and then I lost it when I moved house, and then I found it again. I think it's still in the loft.
I'd like to see that.
Yeah, next time I know I'm seeing you, I don't know when that will be. I don't know if you're on Stella or not, but if it is, I'll dig it out.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not on the Stella. I think I need to consolidate in my head all the things, and it seems that my universal activities are going down a completely different rabbit hole, one that I wasn't expecting to be doing.
as it always is.
Yeah, I know. I was like, oh, seriously? When you have 3 people telling you something, you need to do this, you're like, okay, I've got to do it, haven't I? Because
Yeah, absolutely.
I was watching a thing, and it was Penny Dix was actually talking about signs on YouTube, and he was getting people to do their numerology, so their life path numbers, and mine's a 3. My life path number is 3, and I've also got an 8 and a 7 and an 8 to do with
mine's an 8.
Is it?
Yeah. What's an interesting one is your human design, if you haven't looked at that.
I did. It was interesting because I had one done years ago for human design, and the guy doused my birth time, and he came up with a birth time, which he said, this is what your birth time is. I've doused it, blah, blah. And so we were going along with that particular birth time, and something didn't feel quite right. So I actually looked into it and said, is there a way to find out your birth time, which is a bit more scientific, and you can have it resected? And what they do is they put in all these events that happen in your life into a computer, and the computer calculates the most likely time that you were born based on what happened to you. What is all the, like the big events, like when you got married, when you had kids, when your divorce happened, all of those sort of things. I was surprised at how much I remembered, and I was able to go through diaries as well. I still had diaries that had all of it, and it wasn't the time he doused me as. My birth time was, according to the resector, was at 13:23, because I couldn't find anyone who knew who was alive, who knew when I was born. My dad, I don't think he really knew what day it was because he wasn't even in the country.
I know that I was born at 6:45, so as my mum says, bang on tea time. I smelt the food coming. So I know mine pretty accurately, but I really found that the human design was quite useful in understanding a huge amount of myself, really, because I'm a manifesting generator.
Yes, yeah, that's what I've got.
Is it?
Yeah, when you said it then, I thought, yeah, that is what it said. It's interesting, isn't it? Because my daughter, and you might know the name of this, she's the one where they mirror.
Yeah.
So,
yes. My brain's having a fart, as I say, but I know exactly what you mean. Because I did it. I helped my friend do the human design the other day, and he had the mirrory one, and it's just my brain's gone to mush. Because me, you, and our lovely friend Kirsty are all manifesting generators. So
It
quite
explains a
interesting.
thing or two, doesn't it? But it's interesting, isn't it? Because I remember when John Kritoff did the thing with the human design, and this was a
Yeah.
few years ago, and Sean's these empty spaces could be a good thing, but they could also be a really negative thing. In that
Yes.
we could have massive problems, me and her together, because of what I was.
Yeah. Projector. So there's manifesting generator, manifester, generator, projector, and reflector. So it's reflector.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So yeah, that's an interesting one.
Well, it can do if they're with if it doesn't. Yeah, it's quite interesting, isn't it? Because then sometimes
Yeah.
when you think about using the cards, going back to the tarot, is sometimes the cards reflect things at us
Yeah.
that we're not ready to deal with.
Well, absolutely. My opinion has always been tarot is nothing more than a reflection of the inner soul. It's not people go, oh, it's fortune telling. You're going to tell me when I'm died. I went, no, I've never believed in that. But if you're wanting to work through some issues, it's kind of like a little cardboard or paper version of shadow work. Really, I find them, especially when used in that way, like, what do I need to know? How can I fix this? What do I need to heal from? Those sorts of questions. I find that the answers are usually quite profound, and people aren't quite prepared for it.
Yeah. There's a
Which is
there's a lot of psychology within it, isn't there?
there is, and I think even more so now because people are applying a lot more of mainstream psychology, thanks to like Carl Jung. They've applied it to the tarot, where initially it wasn't really there. I mean, you had your classic symbolism and sort of. I mean, if you think of the High Priestess card as the one that pops into the head, like you've got two pillars, the light within the dark, B and J, and then you've got other symbolism that's, you look at it and you go, this is so simple, but why didn't I notice that the first time or the 100th time or the 200th time I've looked at it? And it's kind of like the more proficient you get, the deeper you can see within the layers.
Yeah, definitely. It's like whereas we were looking at the imagery of the Rider-Waite and the Fool, and they said,
Yeah.
right, let's discuss this image of the Fool, and he's standing on the edge of a cliff, etc., etc.
Yeah.
And I said, well, we only assume it's a cliff. It might be, I said, if it's like certain places in Cornwall, I said, it might be a tiny cliff and there might be another level that you could drop onto, and actually you're not risking anything. I said, because if you look at a dog, I said, the dog's not scared.
No, absolutely. I always thought in my mind it could have easily been like some rocky outcrop with like got natural steps.
Yeah. Well, the dog's not frightened, is it? The dog is almost he's flamboyant. Let's go for it. Woohoo!
Absolutely. He's thinking, what food have you got for me? That's
And I think, when you look at those sort of things, you're picking up the observation of what else is going on around, and there's no fear, because I don't think there's anything to fear.
no. I always look at the Fool as sometimes we need to kind of get a little bit silly, and we need to act not literally just act the fool, but kind of strip away all our really like narrow-minded thinking and allow ourselves to be a bit freer. Because sometimes to be foolish or to be the fool is seen as like, well, they're an idiot, they're stupid, they're whatever. So sometimes we overcomplicate it, and I think sometimes it's about stripping it back to those really brass tacks ideas of, okay, well, this is A, this is B, and I need to get from A to B. How do I do it?
Yeah. And then you've got the other aspect that once upon a time, the Fool was one of the most influential people in the land.
Yeah, absolutely. And, court jester, very much
Yeah.
the Fool idea.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
also, it's the very idea. If you look at the imagery of the classic card, he's got like a bindle, so he's carrying his worldly possessions around him on a stick. He's carrying flowers. His dress or his tunic is often got lots of star-like patterns on them. He's got waves crashing. So, if anything, this is very much about the cycles of life, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, there's a lot of elements there, aren't there? It brings
Yeah.
in the colour systems that represent the 4 elements, if not 5 or 6 aspects to it. When you
Yeah,
look at bringing it all in, and I suppose that's the thing, and I suppose this is almost like our subliminal message to any of you guys that are listening is Cameron and I want you to be open-minded, and if you're not quite there, maybe take some time, bring a moment of stillness, and open your eyes again.
absolutely. And I think what people also don't realize is that for every tarot card there is a reversed meaning. Whether people choose to read that or believe it is irrelevant. But if we think about what the Fool reversed actually means, it's a call to reevaluate. It's reevaluate intentions, motivations, and inner guidance. So it's taking a look. It is literally, as we've just said, taking that stock of something, reaching that still point, and going, what do I do? How do I do it? Why do I do it? And when you take it back to the bare bones, it's always just a mirror. And they might as well come with the words at the bottom, and they might as well be plastic mirrors, because it would save a whole lot of money on ink.
I don't know. I think we like the imagery, don't we?
We do, yeah. And then some people think that the Fool is the most powerful card within the whole major arcana, purely from a sense that it represents potential and innocence and the beginning of a journey. If you think about it that way.
I reckon Mab would say that the Fool is probably the person who's most evolved.
Yeah. And if we take it into earlier on, we were talking about astrology and things like that. The Fool actually represents Aquarius, or the Aquarians.
Yeah.
And so you try telling an Aquarian that they're wrong.
I know.
Or that they can't, or that they shouldn't. They're going to find a way to do it.
Yeah.
And that's what the Fool represents, is that unbounded or unboundless potential, I suppose, really.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Because there's a certain stubbornness to Aquarians that people say Taurians have it, but we're nothing on an Aquarian who digs their heels in.
Absolutely. And it's the same. I'm an Aries, and everyone says, "Oh, Aries, they're stubborn." Well, I'm not quite as stubborn as an Aquarian either.
Yeah.
It makes me think, actually, that all of the signs that people say we're stubborn, the Aquarian takes all of them and goes, "I'll raise you one more. I'll raise you one more. I'll be worse than that."
Yeah. No, I agree with you. There's certainly some of the ones I know, they've got a steely glint to their eye.
Absolutely.
And you're going, you wouldn't cross that person, because they're not shifting. If they decide this is what's happening, you hear a note. Yeah, I've noticed it with some, and I'm like, okay. Don't mess with that one then.
It's very true. Very, very true.
It's funny, isn't it? Because I think we've talked about labels and how people like to do that, and when we're looking at whether we're taking characters from the tarot or looking at astrology, it is in essence it's about helping us understand ourselves and understand others Is it so we can have an easier life?
I think it's a mixture of wanting an easier life and wanting an air of being able to fit in and acknowledge and recognize those parts in other people as well. Because if we know that we're an Aquarian or we're an Aries, and it says that you act a certain way, then other people will probably say, well, oh yeah, I do this and I do that. And it gives a sense of commonality and being able to relate, which I think that's what the human experience is about relating to others.
Yeah. There's a natural inclination to want to be part of a group or of a community, to belong. I spoke to David Anderson, and we were talking about that need to belong amongst humans, to be accepted.
Absolutely, it's you think survival was safety in numbers, wasn't it? So it's ingrained in our ancestral DNA to be wanting to be part of a group, because it meant that someone would do the hunting, someone would do the cooking, someone would look after the children. That old adage of "it takes a village to raise a child."
Yes.
Seems rather apt there.
Oh, definitely. And I suppose when you think back to it, as you said, safety in numbers. If you had more people on your side, then you weren't going to have your resources stolen.
Absolutely, yeah. You had, as much as you had sort of support, you also had defence.
Yeah. It's
and there's a great. I can't think who says it. There's an anthropologist that says, when did we first noticed about civilization and how civilization occurred? And it's when you saw historic bodies that had seen a break in the bone and it had healed, because prior you would have been left to die with a broken leg or a broken arm or whatever. And when civilization develops, it's because we started looking after people, looking after each other, so that wound could heal.
Yeah. Was it? It's that place, is it? Something Tepe place, wasn't it?
I didn't catch what you said there. You crackled.
You know.
Oh, I'm not sure.
The place called, is it some? I can't remember the first part of it. Something Tepe.
I know what you're. Yes, I know what you're saying. What's it called? It's going to bug me.
It's in Turkey.
Yes. I'm going to have a little scroll through.
There's
a little Google.
It's huge. They've got a huge temple, and the symbols and the carvings, and the time it took to create means that they had to have been static.
Yeah, Göbekli Tepe.
That's it.
Yeah, it was kind of like, there more and more evidence is saying that that the pyramids weren't built by humans, and whether you believe that or you don't, that's irrelevant. But the fact is, it was built. Let's stop focusing on how it was built, and the fact that let's focus on why it was built, because people think, it's just to hold the tombs of pharaohs, but they're not just that. They have huge resonance chambers inside. So they were, as much as they were places of burial and funerary rites, they're also part of healing. They're also part of communal spaces. There's so much more to them. It's like the whole Stonehenge argument. We're never going to know.
I was just thinking there, as you were saying that about the pyramids, is with the resonances, they were built on the concept that it would be easier for your soul to transcend.
Yes, yeah, because it would enable it to go upwards start from the wide base.
Yeah.
And if we're talking from a Kabbalistic tree of life, you go from Malkuth to Theta, so the foundation of the kingdom or the earth, to the source. So that's an interesting perspective as well.
Yeah. So I'm going to you mentioned earlier on, you said amateur dramatics. So tell me about the character that you're just about to play, because you're going to be, is it in Plymouth that you're going to be on stage?
Yes, I was. Unfortunately, due to things here at home, I'm not going to be able to do that role. But due to some things that are coming up this year in the household, but so amateur dramatics has been a part of my life since I was 10, on and off. So I wasn't a very confident young chap, as despite how it appears now. So my mum sent me along, and I was in a pantomime, did panto after panto after panto, and lots of other sort of comedy fast roles. And then naturally, it's no longer cool to do stuff like that, so I stepped away from it. And then in 2018, I returned to the theatre to direct. So I directed a production of Treasure Island, pirates and sing songs and shanties. It was great. But in the meantime, I'd sort of picked up performing anyway, which I loved. And then naturally the pandemic came, and I would have lost a lot of work anyway. So I hung up the heels as the drag character, and only this year did I think about returning. And then, due to the fact that my other half is waiting on a surgery, I was, I'll have time to do that. And then it looks like it could be happening in September, so which is when I'm supposed to go on stage. But yeah, so unfortunately I had to bow out of that one. And luckily we'd only had about 3 or 4 rehearsals. So to find someone to take on my character, which was the lead, what hopefully isn't too much of an effort for them. In that sense, should be easy to find somebody.
And what was the character?
So he was called Dave, and he was a straight, sort of neurotic, middle-aged gent, really, that had just found out that he was about to inherit £6.5 million from a long-lost relative. Mm-hmm. And he needed to be married to receive it, so he's not got a girlfriend or anything like that, and he had to convince the neighbour, who only agreed to do it if they paid her. And then sort of the typical farce sort of things ensue, like his stepmom appears randomly and like wants some of the money. His best mate is a complete incompetent. He thinks like the radio's giving him messages from beyond because it's kind of describing bad things happening, and so it would have been an exercise in me being completely neurotic.
So it would have been fun.
It would have been fine. Yeah, it would have been fun. It would have been very easy.
I think it's funny, isn't it? Because when I look back over when I was younger, and I was constantly doing stuff like stage things as a teenager, you know. I don't know if you ever heard of something called the gang show that the Scout movement used to do.
Yeah, I'm aware of it. Obviously, I didn't do scouting as a child, but aware of it.
Yeah, they still do a gang show apparently in some places, but it was done, you know, so many places used to do them. We used to have one in the Regal Cinema, which was huge, and they would have all the Scout movement and guides and brownies coming around from Cornwall, and it was a bit like a variety show.
Yeah.
And so there would be different things, and it was always, you know, lots of singing involved. And I remember one year I was on there dressed as a nun, and we were singing some song out of The Sound of Music. And but there was so much amateur dramatics available that you just took part in. You know, it was part of the autumn with the dark nights was there'd be panto to get involved with, and you would be maybe part of a chorus line, and then you'd have the nativity to do, which that used to be an escalation of your role, used to change from starting off being a sheep. And I actually did play the angel Gabriel.
I remember my nativity in nursery. I think I was Joseph.
Oh, I was 16 when I was the Angel Gabriel, because you had to be relatively tall and of a size, because you wore Mrs. Jeffrey's wedding dress to play the part, and the wings were huge. They were heavy and they had proper feathers. Like, they were really well made wings.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, so they were. It was quite something as a costume to wear. It was the best costume in the whole nativity play over the years, was to be Gabriel with wings.
Yeah, I think I just wore like a pair of like pajama trousers and my dressing gown and a tea towel on my head. To be fair,
It's like,
but
which film was it? Is it Love Actually, where it has where you've got all those kids coming on, like dinosaurs and weird stuff in that panto?
I think so. I've only watched that film once, so.
Oh, honestly,
yeah, it was a long time ago.
You need to see it again. Oh, it's funny, isn't it? Because you have certain films. I don't know. Years ago, one of the cult ones was Dirty Dancing.
Oh yeah, everyone watched that, didn't they?
Yeah, and there was a whole thing because everybody was doing the dance. So because we had the soundtrack, and we used to have dance to all of that music. It was interesting the effect that those films have. So tell me, because you're much younger, what film has had the greatest impact on you?
Oh, that's an interesting one. There's several, but I think top of my list is Priscilla, Queen of the Desert.
Mm-hmm.
Then the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and trying to think. The what's it called? The Lake House. So yeah, those three. Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, because it's pure camp. It's just silly, and I always thought one day when I was a youngster, when I first watched it, I think I was about 15, but one day I would tour around and do all that, and I did end up doing that, but it was just the way that they all seemed so accepted, and I thought, oh, maybe one day we'll get to that, and maybe one day we will be at full acceptance like they received. Obviously, they had a bit of a bumpy ride, but obviously Rocky Horror, pure from the fact that it was just so out there, and even for its time, it's 50 years old this year. It's such a special movie because no matter what era you watch it in, it's still kind of current. And I mean, who doesn't love Tim Curry? I just think a bit of an icon, and how to act and just not give a crap about what anyone thinks of the role. And he did it his own way, and it's very inspiring that way. But you've got sort of like Susan Sarandon, kind of quite young into her career, and how it's made other people's careers. And the Lake House, purely because it was kind of it talks about grief, it talks about loss, it talks about sort of being in two sort of mental states. And I think, although it's set in two different timelines, I think it's very much quite imminent or sort of indicative of living in the past too much.
Yes.
I'm a bit of a movie buff anyway, so I could have easily said about 50 films there.